or identify an organization that trains and trains alone. Training itself, again, is a means, it's not an end. The set of activities, leader selection, leader development, training and continued professionalization, the linkage to the confinement and penal system, the linkage to the judicial system, and the set of other activities that are described, I'm sure, in John's field guide, as well as in what I've written in many others, in Bob's book. A headquarters or an organization or a set of organizations with some cohesion is required to make sure that not just the tip of the spear, but the shaft, for the duration required, can do the job. And to define the problem merely as a training problem and identify an organization to do the training and think that you're done is to, again, fall to the myth of the tip of the spear. The second, in my view, the myth is the choices between quality or quantity. Either you train a bunch of guys and women to be policemen very quickly and you throw them out in the street, or you dedicate yourself to doing what's right. This is, in my view, I'm also a philosopher by academic training. This is a false dilemma. In certainly cases, at least like those with which I've been associated, if you just train a bunch of guys, put them on the street, you're going to do it over and over and over again. Merely identifying quantity is really foolish. We did this again in Iraq and Afghanistan. How many years do you have to train? How many numbers of policemen do you have to train to realize that it's not about just training numbers of policemen? I don't know the answer to that question. It seems like the answer is infinite as far as some perspectives are concerned. On the other hand, quality. It is no doubt in my mind that the best thing that I could have done in terms of the highest quality while I had this responsibility in Iraq was to take individuals, put them through a very long training and education program, make sure that they all had at least high school education to begin with, then put them on the street with a mentor for another year of apprenticeship, and then make them a police officer. Had I done that in 2007, we would have lost the war, and we would have been in a much worse position. So the issue for at least a person like me is what's sufficient, first off. What's good enough for now? And second, how do I embed into the system an iterative understanding of quality so that next year the police force is a little better than this year, the year after that a little better. I take my experience as an Army officer in that regard. Certainly the Army that I joined in 1971 following Vietnam got better every year after Vietnam. The Army that we have now didn't grow whole cloth, one whack, in 1976. We had to take a number of steps over a number of years. This tells me that quality is an iterative characteristic, not an absolute characteristic. So sufficiency, what's sufficient between quantity and quality? What's sufficient right now, and how do I build in iterative quality systems so that it gets better? Second myth. Third myth, is related to the first one. Once training and equipping is done, then you can transition to civilian control and go home. This is a really, I think, a myth that is based on a mistaken analogy that training police is like a bass fishing tournament. You catch, you measure, you release. You don't recruit, train, and release. The partnership program that follows training of policemen is very much the mentorship program is very much part of the continual training. This transition is a gradual transition. And maybe it's the case, probably it's the case, that at the individual policeman level, you may transition earlier than you can at the state or provincial level, than you can at the national level. That the farther away you get from the tip of the spear, the more mentorship and requirement and partnership is required, because the changing habits of behavior at the national level takes a heck of a lot longer. Changing habits of behavior and organizational capability at the state and provincial level certainly takes a lot longer. Connecting those two together takes a lot longer. So this transition business is not, again, about training a set of numbers. They're trained, they're equipped, we're out of here. It's, again, part maybe associated with the first myth, but is so dominant that I think worth talking about as a separate myth. The last myth, and then I'm going to talk about one principle at the end that should govern, but still I think has insufficient leverage here. The last myth, you can approach police training like you do military training. Now, that's why I started today. I am a military trainer. I do very well as a military trainer. If you want a brigade train, give it to me. A division, a corps, not a problem. Police are different. And it's a difference between imposing security, which guys like me can do very well. When I showed up occasions with 7,000 guys with guns, there was really no problem. That's imposing security. And military forces do that well. But that's not enforcing security. That's not enforcing what already should exist as a communal agreement about how we should police do that. There's no police force in the world that can impose security on a city that has no social contract, no implicit agreement. That's why you call out the National Guard and federalize the Army when you get to the position like L.A. in the L.A. riots or the riots in 1967. So imposing security and enforcing security are two different things. Military guys do the first, police do the second. And how you approach the second very much is different than how you approach the first. Police forces need a set of conditions to exist. You don't need conditions to exist to impose security. I just show up with 7,000 guns. That's the only condition I need. Chaos, no problem. I got communications. But with police, this is a different deal. A certain set of conditions have to exist before you can really start training, again, in my experience, training police in the right way. If the conditions are that policemen are afraid for their lives, or they're afraid because their families are intimidated, or they're paid so little that they must prey off the society they're supposed to protect, or they have no set of systems that support them, so they steal and rob to get whatever they need, these conditions have to be gone. And in some situations, it requires the imposition of security for a certain amount of time before those conditions are gone and you can start working on a police force like we all know and agree we should do. The one principle, those are the four myths. The one principle, set the conditions from the start to achieve unity of effort and coherency of action. Now notice I did not say unity of command. You would expect an Army guy to say that. But the number of people, number of agencies, variety of agencies required by their nature to associate with police and law enforcement systems, a justice system, a confinement system, an education system. You must, at least from the U.S. side, you're going to include state, you're going to include justice, you're going to include USAID, and I believe in certain cases where the conditions of security have to be imposed first, you must have the Department of Defense. But the unity of effort among these departments is absolutely essential. Otherwise, you have people diffracted from the goal that we all have rather than concentrated. You don't have cohesion of action. You have diffraction of action. You have a cacophony rather than a chorus. Pick whatever analogy that you want. But again, after 10 years of war, we still see the difficulty in achieving this unity of effort and coherency of action. Now, notice I didn't say, again, the principle is put one agency in charge. Maybe that's right, I don't know if it's right. But the real answer is, how do you get unity of purpose, unity of effort, and coherency of action among the agencies who are going to naturally be part of this enterprise? So those are my four myths. That's my one principle, and I look forward to the conversation, the questions in the next portion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our final speaker, Colette.